Greg Todd is one of the best human beings I've ever met. You today are going to get to hear him teach about the power of how to scale yourself as a leader so that you can grow infinitely. I'm not exaggerating. This episode changed me, helped me, served me in a way that where if you're even slightly paying attention, it's going to transform the way you see life. We talk about happiness at its core level. And as a leader and as an entrepreneur, these aspects that we're going to talk about are going to be so relatable, but yet so mind expanding that I am excited and honored to present today's episode. Enjoy the show. So we have Greg Todd today. This is a very exciting moment for me to be able to share the space with someone who inspired the Willpower podcast. Greg, thank you for being on the show today.
Will, thank you so much for having me. And I appreciate you and I appreciate our friendship.
Yeah, man. It was such a cool experience to meet you in person after watching your content for years. I don't know if you ever know when you're making content that you're making that kind of an impact, but you're one of those people that just really was a signal to me in terms of calling me out to wanting to be a better leader, a better, owner of my company. And then when we finally met last year at Brandon Siegel's event, I ran up to you and I couldn't even hold back. I'm like, dude, I love you. I think that's how I introduced myself. Hey, I'm Will. I love you. And you were so not weirded out by that, Greg. I was like, dude, he's just as cool as a person. I was really grateful for that.
Well, to me, I think the biggest compliment is when someone initially finds out about you online and when they meet you in person, because this has happened to me. I've met some people in person that I have followed and maybe even revered or adored online, and I was very underwhelmed. I feel like the closest people to you should love you the most. And so the fact that you had been following my work online, and then when we met, you weren't underwhelmed means a lot to me. And I didn't know of you prior to just what Brandon had told me about you. And I was not underwhelmed when I met you. You're an amazing
thank you.
dude.
What a huge compliment.
Great energy. And people that are listening, our relationship has just built over the last 10, 11 months. And I'm really excited to see what things have in store for both of us collectively in 2026.
Yeah, I am so excited. And like I mentioned, we have this growing audience of people overseas who are probably aren't as familiar as the PT owner audience. So if you could just give us an update what you're working on these days, I think that'd be a great way for them to get accustomed to you and your passions and what you work on.
Yeah, so I'll give you quickly my backstory. My backstory is that I was a licensed physical therapist. I started as a physical therapist in late 2000. So I've been doing physical therapy for 25 years. I was not trying to be an entrepreneur. I was trying to just be the best physical therapist I possibly could. It wasn't giving me the thing that I thought it would give me, which was authority in my community, time freedom, financial freedom. I quickly realized I was on a path where that wasn't happening, doing it the way that I was doing it at that time. So fast forward, I decided to open up a practice, which I was not trying to do when I came out of physical therapy school. And for the last 21 years, I have been an entrepreneur. Today, I have 5 businesses in 5 different sectors. So I have a physical therapy, clinic. I have a vacation rental business. I have a software business. I have a consulting business. And I actually have a virtual assistant, services business as well. So I was not planning on being an entrepreneur, and here I am being an entrepreneur. Today, I would say going into 2026, it is the same premise of what I'm trying to do for people, which is to help clinicians stop trading all of their time for money, which allows them to impact more people and make more income. And when you make more income, you're able to buy back your time. And when you're able to buy back your time, you just have options. You have options to do things, whether that is to help other people, whether that's to help yourself, whether that is to help your family, or that is to create more opportunities for more people, or maybe a combination of all of them. And so my focus going into 2026 has always been that and will be that. It's just the way that we're doing it is different. Today, we have access to tech. We have access to artificial intelligence. And I'm really diving into how we can use it in a practical way that can make our businesses run smoother, that can have clinicians that are not not trying to run a huge practice, how they can actually leverage themselves using AI, teaching virtual assistants how they can use AI so that they can be more valuable and more skillful in their marketplace. But really, that's a huge part of what I'm doing, is just teaching people and learning it for myself, implementing it into all of my different businesses, and then just realizing, wait, what is the one thing that I'm doing that works in a vacation rental business, and it works in clinics, and it works in my services business, and it's working with my software company. Okay, those are the things I'm like, okay, this is something that I can teach someone regardless of if they're a PT, they're they're an OT, they're a speech therapist, they're a chiropractor, et cetera. So that's really what I'm working on, man.
That's so amazing. I think people who are listening are like, how does he do it? How do you balance all of these different companies? Before I even, why don't you answer that a little bit? But the bigger question I have for you, Todd, is what's driving you? Like, why? Why? Because 5 companies is very attractive, but as someone who's a bit of a serial entrepreneur myself, there's a certain hell that comes from not knowing, boundaries of those things for me when I'm trying to do all those things. So tell me what's driving you, and then how you're able to maintain focus on so many different things.
I'm gonna talk about the focus part because I don't want, and then I'll talk about what's driving me after that. So how I'm able to do it, I don't want any of you to think that I'm really that special, because I'm not. Here's the reality. The reality is that of the 5 businesses, one of them I am operating on a day-to-day basis, and that is my consulting business. That's Smart Success Healthcare. I'm operating that on a daily basis, and that is funneling into 2 of the other businesses. So,
I see. So they're really separate businesses, but they're more
all
like
separate business. Yeah.
Yeah.
But really, now here's the deal. Those other businesses are multi-6-figure businesses, but I have really good people that work with me. So I have one person, Andrew. He oversees the virtual services business. Okay. I have Brittany, who oversees the software company. I have a property management company that oversees our vacation rentals, right? And so I have different people, and then I have my business partner, Mike, who oversees my physical therapy clinic. So the reality is that, yes, I'm a part of all those businesses. I am a business operator. I serve as a consultant for 4 of them. I am owner operator of the 5th one, but I have really good people. And at the end of the day, anybody that's telling you that they have multiple businesses, I have a coach that has, he's involved in 27 businesses. The reality is that we're not working all day, all night. I honestly am working part-time. Okay. I'm working part-time. I just understand that there are 4 different levels of value in a marketplace. If it's okay, I'll quickly explain this.
Yeah, please.
Okay. So the way that it works is we are all, in my eyes, in the way that, at least my belief system, we're all valued equally in the image of God. Okay. So when I say this is not I'm more valuable than you or you're more valuable than me, but in the marketplace, value is looked at differently. Okay. So there's implementation work, and implementation work is the lowest level of value. That's where you are trading time for money, and you're doing an activity as the value that you're bringing to the marketplace. So like I'm going to Park City, Utah next week, right? When I go to Park City, I'm going to go into an Airbnb, and I expect that Airbnb is going to be clean. I mean, I want it to be clean. You want to know, and by the way, it's extremely important. The people that do that are going to clean the property are the cleaners. Now, they're doing implementation work. Their work is extremely important, because I don't want to go in there with dirty sheets and a dirty comforter.
Ruins the experience.
Totally ruin the experience. So these people are very important, but they're doing trading time for money work. That's called implementation work. When I became a physical therapist, I was doing implementation work. My work was to evaluate patients and to treat patients, okay? But it is the lowest level of value. So you can make anywhere between minimum wage all the way up to $150,000, $200,000 a year if you just do implementation work. There are some outliers where you're a surgeon and you're making $300,000, $400,000 a year. But for the most part, implementation work is the lowest level of work. Okay. All right. Then you have the next level, which is unification. Unification is what I started doing about 2.5 years after I became a physical therapist. My boss, when I got my first annual review, she gave me a 1.5% increase in pay. And she said, and I wasn't very happy because at that time I was making under $40,000 a year, US dollars.
Oh, yeah.
And so I said, how do I make more money, Jen? And she was like, you have to become a director. I was like, okay, well, where do I get a job as a director? She goes, not here, because I'm your director. So I was like, all right. So guess what? Well, within 3 months, I left that job and I became a director. And that's what moved me up to Tampa Bay. Okay. I was living in South Florida. That's what moved me to Tampa Bay. What she indirectly was trying to tell me is that there's a higher level of value than implementation. That's unification. Right. And unification is where you are overseeing implementers. So for me working as a manager and overseeing other clinicians, or me working at a manager at Whataburger and overseeing other cashiers and other people that are cooks and cleaning the place, that is a higher level of value in the marketplace. So you make more money doing that, okay? So that is a unification level, and you make anywhere between, on the low end, $50,000 a year. On the high end, you can make $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year if you are the manager of a big Fortune 500, company. Okay. The next level is communication. Communication, your value is that you're using your mouth to be able to convey a message that is moving people to action. That message could be that you're an author and people are reading your message and it's moving them to do something. It's moving them to laugh, to cry, maybe to learn something new. It could be that you're a comedian. You're using your mouth to be able to convey stories. You're using your mouth to be able to convey stories that's creating an emotion. Usually that emotion is laughter. You could be an actress or an actor or a speaker or a salesperson. It's a higher level of value. Okay, those people that are not very good at it, they're making minimum wage to nothing. But the people that are really good at it make millions of dollars a year. Okay, sure. With all of that said, that's 3 levels of value in the marketplace. The reason why I'm able to have 5 companies is because in 4 of them, I'm operating at the highest level of value, which is imagination. Imagination is where I'm using my mind to solve problems. And of the 5 companies that I have, 4 of them, that's what I'm doing. I'm using my mind. It doesn't take a lot of energy. It just takes doing a skill set that I didn't learn when I became a physical therapist. Okay. And so I'm doing that for 4 of the businesses. And I'm even doing it for the consulting one because that's what people primarily pay me for. But I'm not doing a lot of physical work. So that's the reason why I'm able to have 5 companies. It's because I'm doing a different level of work. And that's something I didn't understand 25 years ago when I became a physical therapist, but I understand that today, okay? So that's how I do it, all right? I'm not special. I'm just working at imagination work, and I'm not doing as much implementation work because I understand with implementation work, I am using 2 limited resources, my body and my time, and you can't get more of it. But with imagination work, with creation work, I'm using what God gave me that he didn't give a giraffe and he didn't give a zebra and he didn't give that to a dog. I'm using my mind to be able to create solutions to problems that other people have. And he only gave that to us as humans. So I want to use the thing that is the greatest gift that God has given us because God said that I have created us in his image. And he is a creator, and he's a maker. So I would just tell you all to create as many things as you possibly can create and make as many solutions to problems as you can possibly make. And if you do that, you can have 5 businesses just like me and work part-time.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so inspiring to see you objectively go through this process of how you've created so much. And I have been witness of that creative mind in motion. I've sat there and heard you ideate around problems, and it is something of an evolution, I think. I think it's interesting that to get to that point, there's a couple of paradoxes that I have realized in other people that is absolutely true with you, Greg, which is that true people true ideators, true imaginers or imaginationers or whatever, those people are able to do a couple of things in a way that are against the norm. One of them, and this is a concept you taught me, is this idea that people tend to fall into different categories in how they relate to each other. One would be transactional.
Yep.
One would be ripoff, and one would be go-giver. And so
Right.
could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think it's true that you have this ability to acknowledge that you are, again, humble about it, which I think is the other thing about it's counter what you would normally think. People who are higher up, you think would have more of an ego, but the most successful people I know are usually the most humble, realizing that there is a God or there's some other power involved. Right. In your case, talk about those types of transactions, because you were one of the most go-givery people I've ever met. Talk about that piece of it.
Yeah, and I think the majority of us, we don't start out like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to do something and I want something back in return. And by the way, that's by default, that's pretty much how everybody is. We don't necessarily come out the womb that way, but we're definitely conditioned over time to be that way, right? Just think about it. You go to school to learn how to do a job. You do the job's supposed to pay you on an hourly basis. It means that I'm going to do something for you, but you're going to give me something back. Okay. So just by nature and just by the way that the system is set up, that's just how it is. So you have to actively and intentionally say, okay, I am not going to be that way. I don't know when that happened to me. I do think maybe it was around the time that I was, starting my business and really wasn't doing well and realized that whatever I'm doing is not working and nobody owes me anything. And so I just said, I'm going to have to start to do something different. And so I started to build relationships with people. Now, here's what I've learned over the 21 years of me being an entrepreneur. And this is something that me and you talked about in Miami last year, or early this year. There's givers, there's takers, and there's matchers.
What was the third one?
Givers, takers, matchers.
Matchers. Okay.
Yes. So let's kind of break this down. And by the way, this is something that was shared to me by someone that is that mentors me, and I respect this person at a very, very high level. So they said, Greg, here's how it works. For every 100 people that you know, you're going to get a group of them that are going to be takers. You're going to get a group of them that's going to be givers, and you're going to get a group of them that's going to be matchers. I said, okay, can you break this down even more to me? Because the takers part makes sense, the givers part makes sense, but explain the matchers. He says, okay, let's go ahead and let's break it down. Says the takers are the ones that in every instance that they can take from you, they're going to take. Mm-hmm. And he says that of 100 people, it's probably going to be about 10 to 20 of those 100, they're just straight takers.
Yeah,
okay?
They're wired to take.
They're wired, Will, to take as much things from you as possible. They are not looking at giving. They're not looking at bringing value to you. He said, Greg, avoid those people like the plague. Avoid them like the plague. I said, okay. I said, cool. He said, all right, there's also going to be people that are going to be givers. He says they are always trying to bring value to you. If you help them out, great, but that's not their intention. He said, Greg, of every 100 people, it's going to probably be about 3 to 5 that are givers. Wow. He says you do everything in your life to keep those people in your life. You do. And by the way, if you become one of those people, you basically will be able to be in anybody's life that you want to be in. But you have to be a giver. That means that you can't keep score. You can't say, well, I gave Will this. You just can't keep score, man. You can't. He's like, it's going to be about 3 to 5 of the 100 are going to be that way. He's like, Greg, I'm imploring you, I'm encouraging you to be a giver for the rest of your life. Just be a giver. And if you understand the principles of sowing and reaping, you understand that you will always reap more than you sow. There will be a delay between the sowing and the harvest, but you will always reap more. That's a giver's mentality. I said, okay, great, fantastic. I said, all right, but the other one you said is matchers. So explain that. He says, yes. He says, it's really important. He says the matchers are going to be about 75 of the 100. He says a matcher will give to you, but they're keeping score. They will give though. They'll give, but they're like, wait a minute, I did this for you. I brought you on my podcast. I brought you to this event. I did this, I did that, I did that. And it's fine, I'll do it, but now it's time for you to do something for me. And I said, okay, so what do you do with those people? He says, treat them like they are takers.
Interesting. Avoid them like the plague.
Avoid them like the plague.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. That's so much of the population.
That's so much of the population. But here's the reality, Will. It's very difficult for us to have a bunch of really deep, strong relationships with a lot of people anyways. So if you think about it, like,
That's true.
by the way, I mean, I understand, like the majority of my clients, like I have clients that are takers, and that's fine. Well, they're takers, but that's fine. That's the relation. We have that relation. That's fine. Okay. Most of my clients are probably matchers. I explain this to them as well. And I'm trying to get my clients to be givers. But the reality is that people like me and you're part of my inner circle now.
Wow.
Well, you're a giver. So I have to make sure that I keep you in my life, and you have to make sure that you keep me in my life at all costs, right? Okay. So, but you know what? The beautiful thing is that for those of you that are listening, you can basically be in anybody's life that you want to be in if you decide that you're going to be a giver. But being a giver for a lot of people is very difficult because you feel like if you have this mentality, at least in the beginning, you feel like, wow, I'm doing everything for everyone and nobody's doing anything for me, right? And if you have that mentality, it's going to be hard to stay a giver. But now, today, I've just been doing this so long. I'm not keeping score. It's like, whatever. Like, I just want to do things that make me feel good. And for me, what makes me feel good is just giving to people. And I realize that God has put me in a really amazing situation. I feel like I have an obligation. You asked me this earlier, like, what's driving you today? I just feel like I do feel like I have an obligation, and I feel like I'm an immigrant kid from Jamaica that came here and, is doing quite well. And I realized that a lot of things just had to go my way. Whether you want to call that luck, you want to call that the grace of God, you want to call that whatever you want to call it. I just realized I'm extremely fortunate. And I know that I hate the word self-made millionaire. I hate it because who the heck did this themselves? What? You know how many people had to help me or had to be there or had to expose me to something? Like, I just feel like so many people have blessed me along the way. I have to bless other people. It's my obligation. And yes, it's an obligation. It is. But, I want to be a really good steward. And a steward is someone that manages something that God has given them. And I want to do a really good job at that. So I want to be a giver. And I feel a need to show up every single day and help people in whatever way that I can. And that's why I do it.
It's such a great answer. One thing that I would say, just using bold, authentic language for me, Greg, is very few people I've ever met exude the love of God the way that I feel when I'm with you. And so I mentioned before we hit record, my wife and I were in Africa 3 weeks ago, and we were in Kenya, and we weren't with an organization this time. We go a few times. We've been there before with organizations, and we're on the board of one group in particular. But this one lady calls me 3 months ago, and she's like, "Hey, there's these orphanages that are just really struggling. They just need help now." And it's really hard because there's a thing called when giving hurts. When you're going over, like in Guatemala, there's this whole story of a friend of mine who went and they provided food and medical supplies, and then they came back 2 years later. People were just waiting for the saviors from America to come save them, right? Wow. But this is a case where these kids were in dire straits, and so we went over there, and there were 3 orphanages that we visited, Greg. One of them was one for physical disabilities. So it was a lot of cerebral palsy and lots of that type of stuff, but really poor conditions. Another one was a center for young girls that were rescued from sex trafficking rings.
Oh, gosh.
And the third one was just, a regular orphanage, if you could say that, where these 72 kids were living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. And they were just like, this one 24-year-old woman was taking care of them all. And I'm going to try to get through this part. But the thing that I just want to say is that, like, as I talked to them, I was always just curious because they were so happy.
Right.
And that was the thing. I kept talking. I mean, I was just like, they were exuding joy and love. And you want to talk about go-givers. you'd show up and they didn't know if we were connected to money or anything like that. But, and so there was this one person in particular. I just said, when you were rescued, was it the food? Was it the love? Like, what was it? The shelter, the clothes, the education. What was it that helped you more than anything else? And she goes, it was spiritual nourishment. And so I started interviewing other kids and I asked them the same question, Greg, every time. We're talking over a dozen times where I interviewed adults in particular who were a little bit older, who were re-volunteering, like, in your journey of healing, what did that look like? And it was spiritual nourishment. And all of these adults who were giving their time and energy, and some of them had gone on to overcome these circumstances to become doctors, and they were coming back. I said, why are you here? They're like, I have to. I am obligated joyfully. And I think that was the thing, because like you talk about being a steward of love, is how I heard that, is this idea of like this, it was a joyful obligation because they had been given so much.
Right, right. Yeah.
And so I think that's a key piece of this, is recognizing that we're all here because of someone special that's helped us get to this where we are.
A friend of mine who I went to physical therapy school with is now a client of mine, and was here at an event at my home. And he said, Greg, you've always been happy. He's like, before you got all the money, you've always been. I was like, Chris, I've always been very aware. I was like, I've been aware. I'm well aware, just like those people that you met in Kenya. I'm just aware. And I'm aware to know that, and maybe this is because I, had time in Jamaica, in a third world country. I don't know. But I'm well aware to realize that even if I was like those children and those people that you were with in Kenya, those people are breathing.
Yeah.
They're breathing, right? And the reality is this, like, you're not like right now, I'm not telling myself, okay, I'm speaking to Will Humphreys. Okay, I've got to breathe in. My diaphragm's got to, I've got to do, okay, I'm not doing any of that. My body is naturally doing that through the grace of God. I'm looking at you right now and I'm seeing. Now, I can tell my body to open my eyes, but I can't tell my body to see.
You just see.
You see, like, it's just, if we're aware enough to realize that every day we're winning, and every day we have something that we have, whether it's knowledge, it's life, it's resources. We have something we can give to somebody else. If you're just aware to realize how much you have going for you, even if you're broke, even if you're $600,000 in debt right now with student loans, like, you still have so much that you can give to somebody else. If we could just harness and tap into that self-awareness, we can be just like those people that you met in Kenya. And they're aware enough to understand that, like, I have spiritual nourishment. Like, there's a lot of people that have millions of dollars and they have zero spiritual nourishment. And those people in Kenya are much more fulfilled and happy than somebody else. They're just aware to understand what they have in front of them. And unfortunately, many of us are stricken with a spirit of lack, and that we're so focused on what we don't have and not focused on the things that we do have. And and by the way, I'm not saying I do this, perfectly. I just understand that I understand my situation, and I understand that I've got a lot going for me, and I have things that other people don't have. And it's my responsibility just to give those people at least access to the things that I have, or the resources to get the things that I know they want as well. That's it.
Yeah, it's so cool because, what you've done too. I don't think that young physical therapist, Greg, could have ever seen the day where your reach has gone not just across an industry, but across the globe now to these virtual assistants. When I came back from Kenya, I couldn't help but be so happy it's like, it's starting to, like, there's a buzz that kind of shifts after you come back and you're repeatedly inundated with the world that is more this, like, lack of what you don't have. That's social media is a big
Yeah.
culprit of that.
Yeah.
But like for weeks afterwards, I just remember there were some things that went wrong in my world, and I was just like, "Oh, that's so great. We'll figure
Yeah.
that out." Like,
Yeah.
and I will tell you this as someone who's coached before, and I consider you a master coach, is that I think that some of the struggles that I still struggle with, and I think this is something that's really real for me, especially with kids, is that I can do that for myself really easy, where I am not happy and I still struggle, is when someone I love dearly can't see it or won't see
Yeah.
it. And how do you help clients or children or anyone in your world help that see that perspective? That is the foundation of joy, and the foundation of being a giver is understanding at your core that we have been blessed so much.
Yeah, I think it's exposure. I think it's sometimes we can be so in our world, in our little bubble, and clients as well. It could be you, it could be clients, it could be myself. We're so in our world that the focus is so much on ourselves and not on other people. I know for me, when I feel low, I feel depressed, I feel I feel those feelings like you feel it. And I feel those at times too. I just know that the antidote for me is to give. And once I start to give, I start to realize not only how great I have it, but also I start to realize that when I am operating in more of a Christ-like manner and I am giving, a lot of those feelings, they go away. When I am not focused on myself and I am focused on others, those feelings go away for me. I can only speak for what works for me. And I just try to make sure that my client base, kids, my children, understand that when you do that, you will see that those problems go away. You went to Kenya. My daughter right now is on a missions trip in Costa Rica. And I told her it's her first mission trip. I said, Adri, you are going to get so much more from this trip than they are. I'm telling you right now, because you are going to see things. You are going to not only see things that make you realize how grateful you are for things that you might take for granted, but just the fact that you're going to be giving to other people, it's just going to unlock all those things, and it's going to take the focus off of you. That's it. You take the focus off yourself, you start to feel better. That's it, you guys. I mean, yeah, all the giving stuff and me saying giver, taker, matcher, I want you all to be a giver so you feel good.
Yeah.
You feel good. You just feel really good when you're giving, and yeah, it's great. So,
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I received some very clear, in my world, revelation around something I'm dealing with personally to help someone else.
Yeah.
Because that was my question, is like, I know that for me, and I've actually had people before, Greg, go, hey, really, are you that happy or are you just full of crap? Like, I've had people legitimately like, why are you, and I don't even think I come across as that happy. I really don't. I think it's because of our life experiences, and we all have different spiritual gifts. Some of us are just, it's a spiritual gift to be given the clarity of just being aware of maybe what we've been given. If anything, that could be arguably one of the best spiritual gifts.
Yeah.
Because if you can see what you've been given, it just brings your spirits up. But helping another human being,
right.
Because like, it's great to give, but there's also this thing that when you're giving and you really care, especially when it's like a family member, it gets to a point where it's like, yeah, it's hard not to own their feelings. Like you really do want to be happy, but you also want them to understand what they need to do. And I just think that's great. Helping your daughter see that in Costa Rica was giving her that opportunity is big, but also kind of coaching her is like, hey, listen, this is what you're looking for.
Right.
It's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I just think it's there for every single one of us. You don't have to go on a mission trip to Costa Rica to find it.
Yeah, tell me about that.
It's right there for you. Okay, there's a program called 75 Hard. Now, I'm not telling you all you should do 75 Hard, but it is a program that was created by actually one of my coaches, my business coaches. He created the program. His name is Andy Frisilla. He runs a company called First Form, and I started doing this in 2021. Okay, so I did the 75 days, and it was like 2 workouts a day for 45 minutes. Drink gallon of water, this, that. Okay. So I did it. It was great. But then I didn't realize at the end of it that there's actually like 3 more phases to it.
Oh, I didn't know that either. I've
Yeah,
only heard of the first 75 days.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So there's like 3 more phases to it. And in the final phase, which is the phase that changed my life the most, it was to do 1 random act of kindness a day.
Interesting.
1 random act of kindness a day, and to go up and talk to a stranger every single day. That's the part that changed my life. That was really hard. By the way, I can turn it on, right? Like I can turn it on. Like I know we're doing a podcast, you know, okay, but I'm also like I'm an extroverted introvert. Does that make sense?
I call myself the same thing.
You call that? Okay,
I think,
yeah.
but you're very talented on your extroversion. You can
Yes.
you can turn that dial up. I get it.
And, you know, my family has said, no, Daddy, you are an extrovert. I was like, okay, I'm an extrovert, but I think the thing for me is that I also need my downtime because I am working at that higher level of value, and I'm using my brain a lot and thinking and speaking and, you know, solving problems for people and solving problems for ourselves and whatnot. So I do need my downtime. And when I have my downtime, I want quiet. Okay, I want quiet. And so for me, I lived out in an area called Indian Rocks Beach. It's between St. Petersburg Beach and Clearwater Beach in Florida. And in the mornings, I will go out and walk on the beach. Like that's what I do in the mornings, right? And a lot of times when I walk on the beach, I want quiet. But during this time, I said, you know what? There are people that I walk by every single day and I never say anything to, just like a, you know, quick wave. Or I started this in 2021. I started to stop and say, hey, I see you all the time out here on the beach. What's your name? And person will tell me their name. And it just started a relationship. So I realized that I knew people, and I guess technically, even though I saw them every day, I had no relationship with them. See, a relationship happens when somebody knows who I am and I know who they are. And all it took was for that thing for me to do to actually start a relationship. Now, once you start a relationship with someone knows, okay, I know who Will Humphreys is. Will knows who Greg Todd is. Okay, great. We start a relationship. Now, until you start a relationship, you cannot have a friendship. A friendship is now when I actually like you and you fancy me. And now we are like, hey, I want you in my life and I want to be in yours. That's a friendship. And then from a friendship, which is what I recommend, is to me, especially in business, like I don't want to be partners with people that aren't my friends.
Totally.
Okay? Because at this point in my life, I just want to enjoy what I do. So if I'm going to go and I'm going to go to Arizona and I'm going to go and spend 4 or 5 days there, I want to be with my friends. You know what I mean? I don't want to just to go. Like, no, not at this point in my life. I want to go because my friends are there and I want to see my friends. And if I need to speak at an event with my friends, fine. We'll speak at an event. We want to go to dinner? Let's go to dinner. Okay, that's what I want. So that can't happen until you start a relationship first. Relationship is where you know that I exist, I know you exist. Then we move to friendship. Then we can potentially move to partnerships. The more partnerships you have in business, usually the higher probability that you're going to have long-term success, okay? So I say all that to you because I think a lot of people are living, they're existing, but they're really not living, I should say. They're existing, but they're not living. They're not meeting people. They're not getting out of their comfort zone. They're not meeting new people. They're not acknowledging who are you. They're not calling people by their name. They're not intentional in anything that they're doing. So they're just existing. And that's not a fun place to be. And when you're just existing, usually that's when all the other feelings start to creep in. I don't feel good about myself. I have doubt. I feel low. Woe is me. When you're actually now living, you are intentionally trying to get to know people. You're trying to find the best out of people. You're trying to understand people better. You're trying to figure out what are the problems that you have. Maybe I can help you. Maybe I know somebody. Maybe I have the solution. Maybe I can connect you. Man, gosh, that's a great life to live. It's a great life to live. And you have to be intentional about that in order for that to happen. So, I learned that really, I didn't learn it from 75 Hard, but I was reminded of that 75 Hard, and it's really helped to amplify my life over the last 4 or 5 years.
It's interesting how the amplification comes through amplifying other people's lives. When we first met, We had that great connection. And then on your own, you sent me some of the most encouraging voice messages right before I did my first event.
Did your first event? Yep.
And I'm getting a little emotional just because, like, you said exactly what I was hoping to. I didn't even know I needed to hear at the time that I needed to hear it, which for guys like you and me, that's Jesus working through us in his timing. For anyone else who's listening, it's just doing the right thing. And for me, it's one of those things that, like, it's interesting that the amplification, and there's a gap between the rowing and the seeping, the sowing,
Right.
the sowing and the reaping.
Yeah.
I'm dyslexic. Did you see that? But it's one of those things where, like, when it comes to this thing called existing, I heard it like transacting.
Right.
I almost like feel this excitement around the hope that people who are living at a lesser quality of life, who are listening to this going, man, I'm sad all the time, or I'm struggling. It's like, it's okay. You know, you're being programmed after a certain age to transact, to exchange fairly, instead of recognizing the joy that comes from giving liberally. It's like my favorite quote, you know, so whoever says money doesn't make you happy has never given away a lot.
Right.
This idea of like, we have this opportunity to like pour into people, but I love the fact that you're someone I look up to who can admit that it's hard. Like the fact that you're like, you know what? It's not your natural instinct to stop someone walking in Florida and start a conversation or relationship, but you're doing it because you believe in something, like a potential that there's something better to be experienced, and it's called service.
Right.
So you make that effort to make a connection, and like any other human being, you have enough repetitions of that feedback, it becomes easier in some sense, definitely like more able, because you're just like, I keep practicing this thing.
Right.
So anyone who's listening to this, like, well, I'm no Greg Todd, I can't talk as well as he can. Because honestly, that is intimidating to hear someone like you talk. It's like, no, he started just where we all did. We're all just trying to like find joy, and joy comes from the giving. And that means effort. It's a little bit of getting out of your norm and comfort zone to say hi to somebody.
You guys, I need everybody to rewind that part of the podcast and listen to the last 2 minutes again. Okay, listen to it again. Okay, you just listen to it. Okay, do me a favor, go back again, listen to it again. Okay, is this your third time here? Okay, go back one more time and listen to it again. Okay, here's the deal. I need you all to understand this. I need you to understand that by that exercise that I told you that I started doing in 2021, that is actually what unleashed to a different level all of the gifts that I didn't even realize that I had. My impact has exponentially increased since then, working less, because I became more aware of the gifts that I had. Let me explain. Okay, so let's go back to the beach for a second. So I'm walking in the morning, right? This is super intimidating for me to go meet somebody, because you know what? At the end of the day, somebody could just blow me off, or I don't know what to say to them, right? It's not like going on a podcast where I'm going on Will's podcast and like everybody knows I'm an entrepreneur here, right? Okay, and if you didn't know, it's like he's going to introduce me. Like, this is my wheelhouse. I could talk about this stuff all day. And we haven't even talked about all the stuff yet, okay? We're like, right now, we're just talking life. This, by the way, would be a conversation that Will and I would have off camera, okay? We're
100%.
just recording this right now. Okay, so let me kind of explain to you some of the beach mornings, what that would actually look like. So I would be out there. I'm scared as heck. And I'm like, all right, who am I going to stop? Who am I going to stop? So I would see this, like, I remember seeing these two ladies. They're probably in their mid to late 60s, maybe early, 70s, right? And one of the ladies had on a sling. So I'm like, hi. I was like, what's going over your shoulder? Do you guys see that what happened there is I was able to say, okay, who can I bring value to this morning? And because I saw that she had on a sling, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a physical therapist. Chances are she has something that maybe I can give her a tip with. It activated the value that I had that I would usually not even use that value during that time, but I had the intention to be able to say, I am trying to find someone that I can bring value to on this beach walk. So, okay, so you're like, well, Greg, I'm not a physical therapist. All right, hold on. Let me tell you what happened the next day. So the next day, I'm walking by and I see a lady and her daughter. So I'm like, well, she doesn't have on a sling. She doesn't have on a boot. I'm a physical. Well, what the heck am I going to do with her? Okay, so I just went and I said to the little girl, I'm like, you have the cutest sandals on. And the mom's like, oh, thank you. And then I said, are you guys here on vacation or do you guys live here? She goes, oh no, we're from Minnesota. Don't you know? The Minnesota. Okay. And then after that, we started, talking. And she says, oh, are you on vacation? I was like, no, I'm actually a local here. I was like, she's like, we're actually looking for a really good, coffee place or somewhere we're gonna have breakfast. I'm like, oh, my favorite place is this place called Sweet Sage Cafe. It's like 12 minutes down the road. Oh, you guys are gonna love it. Okay, great. You guys, I just was trying to find something. There was no cast, there was no sling, but I saw a cute little girl with some cute little slippers on, some cute little sandals. Okay, so then the next day, I see a guy, and the guy is walking by, and he's got a Michigan shirt on. So I said, go blue, kinda.
Yeah.
All right. So he's like, are you a Michigan fan? I'm like, nah. I was like, I actually am a UM fan, but it's University of Miami. I was like, I'm a Florida boy. And then he's like, oh wow. He's like this, and then he started saying that he had, I guess, some family member that went to University of Miami. And again, guys, it just made his day. All I did was I looked at the person. This is the thing I'm trying to make you guys understand. I looked at the person, and I just had an intention of how can I bring value to this person? You don't need to be a multimillionaire to bring value. What you need to do is you need to have a spirit of benevolence.
Spirit of benevolence.
That's what you need to have. You need to have a spirit of benevolence. For me, okay? If you have nothing, you're broke as a joke, you have nothing. If you just came to me and you just acknowledged me for the work that I did, I would remember your name for the rest of my life. I don't need your money. But if you could just acknowledge me for that, I'm a human, and you know what I am? I'm a human that has doubts. I'm a human that, as much as I give, still feels like I could give more. But if you just acknowledge me for my artistry, I would remember your name for the rest of my life. If you acknowledge anybody that is a decamillionaire, a multi-billionaire, and you just acknowledge them for things that they doubt. And let me tell you something. I don't care how much money you have. We all doubt. If you could just acknowledge them for their artistry, you could bring value to every single person you meet every single day. You don't have to have money. You don't have to have status, but you have to have a heart of benevolence. That's it. That's it.
It's so powerful because how rare it is. I think what I want people who are listening to get from this is this idea that, like, if we're all equals, like you said, and we are, but that also doesn't mean we don't matter. We individually matter so much. And I think that's part of where that belief in God really serves, because if we're children of God, then we really do matter. Everyone listening needs to hear that they matter, because I don't think we recognize, Greg, the power that we have in eye contact and a smile. And like, maybe that's all we can do to start with, because maybe some people are painfully introverted and they're like, this whole thing sounds like their worst personal experience on earth.
Yeah.
But I think they all need to hear this. We all struggle with it at various degrees. And there is so much to be said just with a smile and a wave. There's so many examples I'm thinking of right now of times where people have done this for me, or I've done this for them, where here's a perfect example. It's not, there's this one time I was going through an Arby's and I was really down on something. We had a family member with a health issue, and it was very scary, and it was in my head, and I was just trying to pick up some fast food at this Arby's. And this young girl, very like, she's not experienced in the world. She was clearly a teenager. I was the most awkward teenager ever. She was competing for me in that space. And she comes to the window. She was not seeing herself. She, with all of her imperfections, just said, hey, how's your day going today? And she meant it.
Wow.
In that normal exchange. And we talk about those small things in books and how there's all these business tactics and customer service and all that stuff, which matters. But at the core of all those things, when you boil it down, is this thing called connection and human relationship, where she just said, how are you doing today? And it was such a sincere question. I literally said, I'm actually having a bit of a hard day. Like I couldn't help myself, because her desire to connect was so authentic. It pulled it out. And she
Right.
said, I'm so sorry to hear that. I hope you have a good rest of your day, or at least a better one. And she handed me her food and I felt better. Greg,
Yeah.
like, to me, that's an angel. Like, that's not just like, wow, that was kind. It was transformative. I'm remembering it years later. I'm telling
Right.
you and hundreds of others and thousands of others, they can literally just, and ironically, that's the thing. That's the thing that we,
It's
if we're
so,
transiting in life and just existing, that we can elevate to by choice
yeah.
anytime we want.
At any time, you can influence someone that's right in front of you. Whether they don't know you, they don't know anything about you, you can. By the way, hopefully, if I know you all can't converse with me right now because we're recording this podcast, but are you probably getting some value from the last 45 minutes of us talking? Okay, if you are, can I tell you something? That this would not have happened had Will not done this to me. All Will did was he acknowledged who I was. He said my name. Okay, he said my name. This is what happened. We were at a restaurant, okay, and we were at this kind of cocktail, like, thing with drinks and stuff like that, and we're just talking, and he acknowledged me and said my name, and he just said what he said in the beginning of the podcast. Basically, I love you. Okay, and he knew who I was, and he acknowledged me for my artistry. And 10 months later, he is part of my inner circle.
To my unbelievable excitement that I am. But it begins with eye contact, smiling, name recognition. And I would say this just as a interesting promotional point of not promotion of you and me, but like for people who are afraid to put themselves out there. Greg also had the courage, because it's scary as heck, to put out his beliefs and thoughts and content earlier, which is how I found him initially.
Right.
I was looking for, someone in my space that I could learn from, and I found him. And it's amazing the power of those small things. I had a recent coaching engagement, Greg, where I was working with someone who's a national best-selling author, like you would know his name, all these things. Mm-hmm. So he interacts with thousands of people every year. I had a chance to meet with him briefly. And most people are either in shock because they're talking to him, or they're like, they want an autograph or a question, and this guy loves to give. He's a giver on steroids. And I just literally was like, what do I want to ask him? I had all these things. And I just, what does he need? And I just thought, well, he doesn't need to hear thank you from me. Like, who am I to say something like that to him? But I literally just said, yeah, but that feels like the right thing to do. And it was hard for me to do. I had my 2 minutes. I just said, before you go, I just want to thank you. And here's what I want to thank you for. And afterwards, I honestly had the thought, like, I'm such an idiot. Why did I, just the things that we do in our heads, which aren't serving us. And I believe is the adversary, but anyway.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, one of his people's like, hey, he wants to talk to you again. Cause like literally no one ever thanks him.
Wow.
And I went, you're kidding. And so we had a chance to connect, and we ended up becoming like kind of connected. And I wouldn't say we're best friends or anything, but like, it's one of those things where it's like the power of just trying to acknowledge another human being. We, like you said it earlier, no matter what we think other people think,
as
long as they're givers, acknowledging them, they are on your level, because none of us are any comparable level to Jesus.
Right.
We're just all in this together as a family, doing the best we can. And when we share love, we're sharing God's love, and we're sharing that connection that allows them to grow.
100%. I just want everybody to understand it really is that easy. And I wish it's something I would have understood even earlier, that I have something of value to give to every single person that I interact with. When I was 16 years old and I was working as a janitor at TJ Maxx, I would have never thought that this life that I have today would be my life at age of 48. But if I had one thing to tell that person, that 16-year-old boy, I would say, you have value to bring to every single person that you come in contact with every single day. And the majority of times that value is just acknowledging their artistry. That's it. And their artistry is what it is that they do to help the world, if you know what that is. And if you don't know what that is, then just saying something that is noteworthy about them. It could be their smile, it could be their energy, it could be their clothing, it could be their mannerisms, it could be anything that is tied to them, and you just acknowledge it. You have given that person value, because at the end of the day, we are all flawed people. We are all people that are very self-conscious, very sometimes too self-deprecating, and and that's really it. So if you guys can just acknowledge that and know that you can bring value every single day, and that we do live in a value-based world. Okay, we don't live in a world of black, white, yellow people. No, we live in. It's either you're bringing value or you're not. Okay, that's it. All right, and if you can just acknowledge that and respect that, basically, the world is at your beck and call. That's it.
Yeah. Ironically, the most successful people I have ever met is totally contrary to what you see on TV. When you see TV and you think of wealth, you think of the powerful, step on people. It's not true. I have been around too long in this world to realize that the most powerful people do this. The power of a sincere compliment is so indescribable, because it not just lifts them up, it lifts us up and helps us discover gifts. Greg, as we close out our time together, which I wish we had, I never interact with you without wishing we just had so much more time, but I also am so grateful, because that to me is a real reflection of that power I get to experience. What is it that, so people who are listening, I told you we've got physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy owners who are listening. We also have these Filipinos who are virtual assistants who are looking to create a better life for them. Can you describe a little bit about your world and how you serve people in those capacities?
Yeah, the main thing that I do is I'm a clinician at heart, and I know the struggle that I have gone through to basically get more time back, and basically, I help people with not exclusively trading all of their time for money. So I want to make sure I make that clear. We all trade time for money. Okay. We need money in order for us to live. We need money for us to pay our bills. We need money for us to be able to help and serve other people. And we use money, for those of us that have a surplus of it, we use it to buy back our time, right? So I know that when I was broke, I couldn't hire a cleaner for my house. Okay, I couldn't hire somebody to do my lawn. All right, so I had to go do the lawn. When I did the lawn, it took time. So it was less time that I can go and help people with the thing that I was the most gifted at. At that time, it was physical therapy, right? Because I had to go do my lawn, right? But then once I started getting money and had extra money, I was able to now pay somebody to do my lawn. And the amount that I paid them was less than what people were paying me for physical therapy. And if you can keep on playing that game over and over and over again, then not fully trade all of your physical time for money, it just gives you more options. So that is really what I help people with. Right. And the way that I do that is I believe that the majority of clinicians, whether they're practice owners or they're straight clinicians, need to figure out how to productize themselves. Okay. And productizing yourself is saying that, listen, I have a gift. God has given me a gift, whether it's my hands, whether it's my knowledge, whether it's my expertise, whether it is the years of working with a certain group of clientele. I have something that I can do to actually productize myself. So what's productization? Productization is where you are not just you're not just in front of someone giving them yourself as physical value for the money that they're giving you in return. Okay, so products could be I'm creating digital products. Products could be I'm creating physical products. Products could be I'm creating memberships. Products could be that I'm changing the offerings that I'm giving to people, where I'm not just having people pay me for cash-based services or have them pay me via traditional insurance. I have other ways that I'm giving them value that doesn't always have to be me physically being there. It could be recorded videos. It could be recorded on-demand trainings, et cetera, et cetera. So really, in essence, that's what I'm helping people do. It used to take a lot longer to be able to create that, because those things are what we call asset. They're assets. Okay, and assets is where I create something once, and it takes me time to create that thing, but then that thing has a potential to now give value to other people and do it over and over and over again, right? So whether that's vacation rental properties or that's courses or that's masterminds. Okay, all those things are potential assets, right? What I'm doing today, Will, is I'm using artificial intelligence to be able to just create the assets a lot faster than what we used to do. So
Amazing.
So that's really it. And if you could do that with using the help of whether it's virtual assistants, using the help of technology, using the help of Gemini or ChatGPT or Kimi or Gamma or all these different AI tools, you can create more assets that allow you not to fully exclusively trade all your time for money. That is in essence what I do. I do that through programs, typically through workshops. I do weekly webinars, and sometimes I'll host events. I do private events at my home, and then I also do a live event usually once a year. In 2026, I'm going to be doing like a lot of summits, which are going to be virtual events, which just allow me to help more people in a scaled way. So that's in essence what I do. And if anybody needs help with that, Will tell you how to get in touch with me.
I do love that. I'm going to put, what's the contact information that would you like me to use? You send that to me, or do you want to say it here?
Yeah. So, smartsuccesshealthcare.com. You can find me if you're on social media, just put at Greg Todd PTs, Instagram, Facebook. My YouTube channel is at Greg Todd PT as well. So if you want to just get free information, you can go there. My cell phone number, my business cell phone number is 813-534-6453. You can reach out to me there, just ask me a question. My team says, Greg, these are the questions that have come in today. And I just sit down every single day and I respond to the questions and I'll help you, kind of move you along. 95% of what I do is totally free. There are some people, they want more of my time. I charge for that, but everything else is free.
Yeah. I want to highlight the fact that, as Greg, I can hear his tone in his voice. As you're talking about your calls to action, you're just so like wanting to get through it because you have to in order to serve people. But it's like this thing that I just want to say openly that even if you're not sure if you need like any of those services, reach out to this man. Like, please, like just have him in your world. The sunlight will enter in that way and you won't regret it. And then, there's opportunities to learn and grow for sure. And if there's something he can do to serve you, lucky you. And ultimately just know that you'll be served so much more that you'll find yourself like me trying not to keep track, because I don't usually keep track of my efforts, Greg, but it's hard when I'm around someone like you who gives so much. Cause it's like, well, crap, Greg, I do like recognize how much of an impact you've made and things that you've done. I'm like, well, Greg wouldn't want me to keep track of that, but it's a powerful thing. So please reach out to Greg. You definitely need more Greg in your life. So Greg, thank you for being on the show. It's been such a gift.
Thank you, brother. I've been wanting to do this. I'm glad I've been looking forward to this day.
Me too.
So I'm really glad that I'm going to be coming out to see you in March as well. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.